Welcome back to the deep dive. And I'm going to be honest with you right off the bat. When I saw the stack of research for today, I hesitated. I really did.
Oh, I saw it.
I looked at the title, looked at the photos, and I kind of froze.
You definitely gave me a look. It was a mix of confusion and, are you serious?
Exactly. Because on the surface, this looks like we grabbed a stack of tabloids from a grocery store checkout in, 2005?
Right.
We're talking about Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston, and Angelina Jolie. And usually we're here breaking down tech trends or, historical mysteries. So I have to ask, why are we doing this? Why does this specific material matter enough for a deep dive?
It's a completely fair question. It feels like gossip. But here's the thing, and this is what the source text, The Price of Passion, argues so effectively. This isn't actually a story about 3 movie stars.
Okay.
If you strip away the names, strip away all the Hollywood glamour, this is a brutal sociological case study.
Yeah.
It's about how public narratives can completely overwrite a private reality.
Overwrite reality. I mean, that sounds almost Orwellian.
Yeah. It is, in a pop culture sense. The deep dive today is really about a concept the text calls erasure. It's about how society decides who gets empathy and who gets, erased when a better, shinier story comes along.
So we're looking at the mechanics of how we, the public, kind of participate in that cruelty.
Exactly. We're looking at the machinery underneath the gossip. The source material treats this whole triangle not as a soap opera, but as a data set for human behavior.
A data set.
Yeah. We're going to look at 2 specific kind of dark concepts from the text, the selfish turning point and the merciless spotlight.
So we're peeling back the glossy magazine cover.
And the text warns us. This particular story left scars, not just because of marriage, and marriages end every day, people fall out of love, but because of how it ended. It unfolded in real time under what the author calls that merciless spotlight that just distorted the truth for entertainment.
Well, let's get into that distortion then, because to understand the crash, we have to understand the before. And if you were alive in the early 2000s, there was a very specific brand attached to Jennifer Aniston. You just couldn't escape it.
Oh, it was everywhere. The source calls it the narrative of the ambition monster.
Ambition monster. Wow, that feels incredibly harsh.
It is, but think back. What was the headline? She won't give him a baby.
Right. She chooses career over family.
The narrative was incredibly simple, and as the text points out, it was incredibly convenient for the media. You had the all-American golden boy who just wanted a family, and the ambitious, selfish Hollywood starlet who denied him that.
It fits a really old archetype, doesn't it? The cold career woman versus the warm hearth.
Precisely. And that's why it stuck. It confirmed a bias society already had. But here's where the source material just drops the hammer. It corrects the record with painful clarity.
This was the part of the research that actually made me angry reading it.
I get that.
Because it's not just a misunderstanding. It's a lie.
It's a total fabrication. The source highlights that Aniston wasn't choosing her career over a child. She was struggling. She was actively trying to conceive. The text describes it as quiet pain.
So let's just sit with that dynamic for a second. You have a woman dealing with fertility struggles, which is a medical and emotional trauma that can destroy people, even in private.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you have millions of people calling her selfish for it.
The source calls it a double victimization. She couldn't defend herself without revealing her private medical history, which no one should ever have to do.
Go for yourself.
So she just had to take it. The text explicitly mentions that while the late-night hosts were making jokes, she was holding on to hope. Hope for a family, hope for more time, and hope that the marriage would survive this struggle.
It just highlights how little we actually know about the people we judge. We mistake the character we see in magazines for the human being. We see a photo. We assign a motive.
And that disconnect is so crucial for what happens next. Because the public didn't see a woman struggling with IVF or anything like that. They saw a villain who was denying the hero his happy ending. And that set the stage for the collision.
The collision. Okay, this is the moment everything changes.
Yeah.
We're talking about the set of the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
The catalyst, yeah.
Now, the source material paints a really vivid picture of Angelina Jolie at this specific moment. It uses 3 words: danger, depth, and intensity.
It's such a stark contrast to the girl next door image Aniston had, right? Aniston was friends, she was comfort, Jolie was, leather jackets and vials of blood.
Right.
But the analysis here goes deeper. The source argues this wasn't just a meeting or an affair, it was an impact event.
An impact event, like an asteroid hitting a planet.
Sort of, yeah. And the text uses this phrase that I've been thinking about all week: desire ran straight through responsibility.
Ran straight through responsibility. That implies a kind of violence, or at least a total lack of breaking.
It implies the momentum of the attraction was so strong, it treated existing commitments, like a marriage, like a history, as just speed bumps.
Wow.
The source acknowledges the chemistry. It says it was undeniable. I mean, we all saw the movie. You could feel it radiating off the screen. But it emphasizes the complication of the timing.
Right, because we have to overlay these two timelines.
Yeah.
This is what makes it so uncomfortable. Timeline A, Aniston, is vulnerable, dealing with private fertility struggles, hoping to save her marriage. Timeline B, her husband walks onto a movie set and meets a woman who just embodies pure adrenaline.
Exactly. And the source wants us to sit with that discomfort. It's not just that he met someone else. It's that the collision happened at the precise moment his partner was most in need of stability.
It's the ultimate betrayal of the whole in sickness and in health vow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even if they weren't legally separated yet, the emotional abandonment happened right there.
And that leads us to the absolute core of this deep dive. The segment the author calls the disappearance of empathy. Because, look, let's be realistic. People cheat. Marriages fall apart. It's sad, but it happens every single day.
Sure.
The source argues that the sin here wasn't just the infidelity, it was the erasure.
Okay, define that for me in this context. What do we mean by erasure?
So look at the timeline. The separation is announced in January 2005, a huge shock to the world. But within months, I mean literally months, Pitt and Jolie are photographed together.
And the beach in Africa?
The beach in Africa.
Yeah.
The W magazine spread domestic bliss.
I remember that spread. It was huge. It was stylized like they were a 1960s family with a bunch of kids.
Yes. Well, the divorce wasn't even final. That was a branding campaign. The source describes a deafening silence regarding Aniston during this time. The world, the media, and the couple themselves, they were so busy celebrating the new thing, the shiny, exciting Brangelina phenomenon, that they completely stopped talking about the person left behind.
The text uses that phrase, crowning a new couple before the old marriage had even been mourned.
That's the erasure. It's not just moving on. It's acting as if the previous reality didn't exist or didn't matter. The source argues that Aniston's pain became an inconvenience to the new narrative.
An inconvenience, that is chilling, like she was just a plot hole they needed to fill so they could get to the sequel.
It is. But think about how narratives work, right? We want a clean story. We want the passionate new love. If we stop to think, hey, wait, there's a woman at home crying over this, it ruins the fun.
It ruins the fantasy.
So collectively, the media, the fans, all of us, we deleted her. We erased her grief so we could enjoy the show.
And that's the selfish turning point you mentioned at the top.
Yeah.
Selfishness isn't just doing what you want. It's refusing to acknowledge the wreckage you leave behind.
Bingo. The source points out that Jolie gave interviews saying she would never knowingly hurt another woman. Pitt stayed mostly silent. Meanwhile, Aniston was left to, in the text's words, absorb the humiliation in silence.
She wasn't even allowed to be the victim in her own story, was she?
No. That's the craziest part of the analysis. The narrative flips so hard that she wasn't the victim. She was the obstacle. She was the thing that had stood in the way of this great cosmic love.
Which brings us to the aftermath. And the source points out a really bitter irony here. We talked about that no kids rumor earlier, that ambition monster label.
The cruel irony, yes. It's painful to look at in hindsight.
So Brad Pitt leaves the woman who allegedly wouldn't give him a family, and he immediately builds the biggest family in Hollywood.
It was like a visual rebuttal. He didn't just have one kid. He built a United Nations of children. He became the ultimate patriarch. And for the public, looking from the outside, this felt like confirmation.
See, he wanted this all along.
And she wouldn't give it to him. Look how happy he is now.
But for Aniston? My God, imagine watching that.
The source says this fact reopened old wounds constantly. Every baby photo was a headline that implicitly criticized her. It proved she wasn't selfish. It proved she was just unlucky. It solidified the tragedy.
And that's devastating when you frame it that way. But, we're 20 years out now. We have hindsight. And the source material doesn't let the new couple off with a happily ever after.
No, it doesn't. And this is where the price of passion really comes in. The text frames the Brangelina relationship as a cautionary tale.
How so? I mean, they were the golden couple for a decade. They were Hollywood royalty.
They were, for sure. But the source asks a really fundamental question. Can a foundation built on erasure actually hold?
Ooh, that's a good question. Can you build a house on a sinkhole?
Right. The relationship began with that collision, where desire ran through responsibility. It ended. Well, we all know how it ended.
Legal battles, accusations, bitterness. It got very public and very ugly.
And the source suggests that the intensity that brought them together, that burned down the house energy, is the same energy that eventually burned it all down.
It's almost like the text is saying the karma of that beginning was baked into the end.
Essentially. When you start a relationship by ignoring empathy, you can't be surprised when empathy is missing at the finish line. The passion that justified everything eventually turned inward on itself.
So where does that leave Jennifer Aniston in this analysis? We've painted a picture of someone erased, humiliated, misrepresented. But the source ends on a different note. It doesn't leave her as a victim.
It ends on resilience. And I think this is the most empowering part of the text for anyone listening who's going through a hard time. The source says Aniston survived the storm with dignity.
Dignity. That's a word we don't use enough. What does that look like in practice here?
It looks like silence. For a long time, think about her options. She could have done the tell-all interview. She could have leaked dirt. She could have fought fire with fire.
She could have burned them down.
But she didn't. She chose, as the text says, peace over explanation.
She played the long game.
She did. And eventually she reclaimed the narrative on her own terms. She spoke up about the fertility pressure years later, but only when she was ready. She refused to let the public define her worth by her marital status or, her uterus.
The source has this summary near the end that it really stripped away the celebrity gloss for me. It stops talking about stars and icons and just lists 3 people.
I love that section. It reduces the most famous love triangle in history to its atomic elements. It says, at the end of the day, this was just a woman hoping, a man choosing desire, and another woman stepping into the moment without looking back.
A woman hoping. That really lingers. It makes it so small and so human. It takes it out of the tabloids and puts it in the living room.
It forces us to stop being spectators, whether it was selfishness or inevitability, and people will debate that forever. The source makes one thing crystal clear. The core issue wasn't the love. It was the lack of empathy.
It's funny. We started this thinking we were talking about tabloids, but we were really talking about us, the audience.
We are the mirror. The source concludes that when empathy is sacrificed for passion, someone always pays the price. And usually, that price is paid quietly by the person the world chose not to listen to.
It makes you think about our own lives. Not just celebrity news, but, office gossip, friend groups, family drama.
Absolutely. Every time there's a juicy news story, a breakup, a firing, a scandal, there's almost always someone being erased to make room for that excitement.
We prioritize the entertainment value over the humanity of the casualty.
That is a heavy takeaway. We are participants in the erasure. We fuel it. By clicking, by watching, by choosing the fun narrative over the true one.
Well, that is a lot to process. But that's why we do these deep dives, to look a little closer at the things we think we know. I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to chew on as you go about your day.
Lay it on them.
We've talked about how the public participated in this erasure of one person's pain because the news story was just cooler, more exciting. So ask yourself this. In your own life or in the news you consume today, how often do you participate in that? How often do you ignore someone's inconvenient pain just because the news story, the drama, the romance is more fun to watch?
That is the uncomfortable question, but it's the only one that really matters.
Thanks for diving in with us today. Remember, there's always a human behind the headline. We'll catch you on the next one.